Let's talk Supergirl this week on Beware of Spoilers. Good evening and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. Early review. These are always fun. I went to a early screening of Supergirl, the newest entry in the DC universe, the second entry. And there's been a lot of discourse about this. And it tends to be the case anytime you get a movie that comes out that is like, we're not going to show off what's it called? We're not going to, lift the review embargo until right before the movie comes out, tends to be kind of a red flag that like you don't think critics are gonna like it very much. And then when the movie does come out, it is what it is. And the other kind of telltale sign was that this kind of screening was available, where you were able to see it a few days early because they're trying to get positive word of mouth going. Think that there's more positive than negative in this movie. This is a quintessential like 4 out of 5, and I think depending on the day, I may go down to 3. But what works is I love the performances in this movie. That's the thing that really sells me. You get this great dynamic between Ruthie and Kara that is like one part like Diana and Steve in Wonder Woman, and then one part Tony and the kid from Jurassic World in Iron Man 3, where it's like you get that back and forth where it's like she's so mission oriented. She's like, I'm gonna, what the fuck? She's so mission oriented that she's going. Sorry, I saw someone go into oncoming traffic. She's so mission oriented that she's gonna go and destroy. That she's gonna go out there and get revenge on Krem, and that's what she's gonna do. And it's like it feels very much like, Diana's just like, put me in the direction of Ares. I'm gonna go fuck up Ares. I don't like, just point me in the right direction. I'm gonna go in a straight line toward him. Like that's very much what she is. And she has these lines that she keeps repeating over and over again. And Kara has this great moment where she's just like off screen behind her, just kind of like mimicking her, like under her breath, just like, mocking what she's saying because she said it so many times in the exact same way. And it's this great dynamic between the two of them, because then you also get this dynamic of like Kara, like, I gotta watch this fucking kid and I really don't want to, but this kid is gonna do what she wants anyway, and if I don't watch her, then she's gonna get herself killed. And it's a really, good dynamic that the two of them have. I like Jason Momoa as Lobo. He's not in the movie that much, which is probably for the best, which is, kind of interesting. Uh, and I think his dynamic with Kara and with Ruthie is also pretty fun. Now, let's get into the negative. Because all of that is enough to carry the movie. Getting to see Kara go through this journey, getting to see Kara develop as a character and really get to flesh it out, especially considering, like, if you're like me and you watch Supergirl on the CW for a long time, you saw the more conventional Supergirl. This is based on Tom King's Woman of Tomorrow run, where she's more jaded and not as, what's it called, and not as, designed to be, pure Superman, but in a skirt. Like she has emotions and depth and range of character into and of herself. So what you get is this, like, this interesting look at this character, and if you juxtapose it, like, one of the things that this movie's gonna have to do is, like, the only thing I liked from the Flash movie was I liked Sasha Cal's take on Supergirl. I'd like, that was gonna be the real thing that was gonna be tough going into this, was like seeing if Milly Alcock could do it, and she knocked it out of the park here. She's just fantastic in this movie, and I love everything she does with this character. She's fantastic. And the issue that I might be pronouncing her name wrong. I really should start looking these things up before I do this. But all of that said, that will carry you through and that'll be enough. There are a few things that are like borderline nitpicks, but also not really. The third act has a lot of really, really, really bad CGI. And I'm not talking CGI in terms of characters fighting. I'm talking the issue of, like, very obvious and very poorly done green screen, where I'm like, why are we doing this? And that it's distracting in that third act. The action sequences are not exactly anything too interesting. Like, if you, like, when I write, and you can pick up Succession Planning, on Amazon and on various other sites, the link is in the description. It comes out in August, shameless self plug. But, when I write the more action-oriented stuff, which we're going to get more of starting next year, what I do in the first pass is I don't choreograph. I kind of just write fighty-fighty. which is something that I picked up from listening to Kevin Smith talk about, his process when he was doing Masters of the Universe. And it's like, look, someone else will come in and they'll make it look good. And I feel like that's kind of what happened here. Craig Gillespie is a good director. I, Tanya is great. Cruella I really liked. The Money was okay. All of that said, he's not an action director, and the action sequences are lacking. On top of that fact is that the action sequences are kind of hard to follow because there's very little specificity in what's going on in the in the general world. That's what I'm looking for. I'm sorry, I'm tired. There's very little specificity between worlds. Like if we look back at the Snyderverse, I know I'm comparing it to the Snyderverse in a positive way. Everything has its own unique visual language. Themyscira has its own visual language. Atlantis has its own visual language. The elements of Shazam and Black Adam have their own visual language. Krypton and the New Gods of Apocalypse, they have their own, visual style to them. Like even like the way the Flash's powers work. All these things look and feel different, and it creates a way of communicating where you are and what you're dealing with. The other place that this is done very well is Marvel, where it's like not only do you get this difference with the Kree and the Skrulls and all this, all these different things where the technology looks different and works different, and the Chitauri and all of that, but like even like going to Kamartaj and all over the place, each universe has its or each movie sub franchise has its own tech and way the tech works. Wakanda, the technology of Wakanda feels profoundly different from the technology of Iron Man and what Tony Stark creates, and that feels different from like how Ultron operates, even though that is created by Tony Stark. It's different from the tech that the Kree use and all of that, and that is kind of this big issue here, is that it's like everything in this movie is cut from the same kind of broody, and I think the best way to really define it is that everything feels a little bit like Nowhere in Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's kind of a problem. It's this kind of dirty, like grungy look to the universe, which is fine for one or two planets. And I will say that like when we get somewhere else and we get some interesting different design aesthetics, it is some really memorable stuff. Like the for lack of a better phrasing, I don't remember what they're actually called, but the Techno Union Army from Star Wars who show up and they can teleport back and forth, and they teleport with that weird like digital effect. That's a really cool thing. And they look and feel different from Creme of the Yellow Hills and all of that. And all of that kind of is part of the problem, where it's like Lobo feels very at home in this world, as does Kara before she's in Supergirl suit, which she's in most of the movie. She's in that overcoat that kind of looks like a cock on the cup of what's it called on the AMC souvenir cup. It's a good look, and it all kind of fits. The issue is when you're creating a world like this, you want to create specificity between the alien races. Like so many of the alien races are either humans or like weird lizard thing that all kind of look kind of similar, or a weird squid thing, and it's like you gotta like differentiate a little bit more. And without that differentiation, everything kind of just looks and feels the same. And it feels like I'm watching a movie from like 2016 or 2017 that's like, clearly we want to do Guardians of the Galaxy, but we just can't. And all science fiction movies should strive for this. Like Star Wars does that, where it's like Naboo looks different from Coruscant, looks different from Tatooine, looks different from the homeworld of the Hutts, and that's something that they should be doing. Everything here looks kind of the same, and there's no real reason given for that. And then because everything is in this like brown, gray, and black kind of dirty looking area, and all the costumes match that, no matter where they are and who's fighting, none of it really lands. And it all kind of feels a little bit strange and a little bit not like confusing is probably the best word. It's hard to track the action in these sequences at times. The other really big issue I have, before we get to the really big issue, I want to talk about something else that's really good that I liked. I almost forgot about this. The expositing the backstory of Krypton, which is going to be important down the line, because the next movie, the bad guy is Brainiac, and that's going to be in Man of Tomorrow next year. Presumably, Kara is going to be there based on how this movie ends off, with a really great scene between her and Clark. And there's a lot of heart in those scenes, too. Like the scene where she first arrives on Earth and she only speaks Kryptonian, and her and Clark are trying to have, like, Clark's trying to talk to her and just not connecting, and he's just like, "Hi, why am I talking louder?" She doesn't understand. Like, the whole thing where he's just having this one-sided conversation with her is really funny. And then 2, it's like, you get this really cool moment of like, "Oh, and this is why she wears the headphones," and it's the explanation of, like, she can hear all the suffering around her and all of that, and, it's her way of tuning it out now. And the reason why I bring all that up, and also I like the fact that they use it as the opportunity to exposit this backstory of what happened to Krypton, and then Argo being separated out and being its own thing. All of that said, Kara's arc in this movie is about learning to be the good person that Bernard the Elf tells her to be in the flashback because David Krumholtz plays her dad. The entire thing that they're going for is she's gonna learn to care about people, and she's gonna learn to, you know, live up to what her parents want her to be. And that's her character arc. We get to the end of the movie, and that is where she ends up. Her putting the suit on is the visual representation of her having completed this character arc. Her and then her going out and saving what's it called? Saving Ruthie from getting that kill. Even though I'm fairly certain she killed at least one person on her escape, or at least like complicit in the like she didn't directly kill that guy maybe, but like when the ship crashed and he's paralyzed, like he probably is dead and she's at least an accomplice to that after the fact. But the point in all of that is she she decides to be the one to kill what's it called? To kill Krem. The problem with that is Kara, as shown in this movie, is very jaded. And the line that's in the trailer that it's kind of an emotional resonance in the movie where it's like Clark sees the good in people, I see the truth. A movie where she's going around because her dog got shot by a human trafficker who traffics in women to Epstein's Island, or women and girls, because like they're trying to get Ruthie for a good amount of the movie. Like Ruthie is like someone they're trying to get, and so that way they can turn her into a child bride, and she is explicitly barely 13 in this movie. And like that's the thing, is that it's like you have this whole thing where it's like she is seeing the worst the universe has to offer, and there's nothing here that's like the point where it's like there is good here. And I think that's the thing that's missing, is that she needs to have that moment where she can see that there is good there. Like the only thing that's close to that is Ruthie deciding to go and like save her. But we like even that, like this character that's as jaded as she is, like would have seen that and been like, oh, well, she's doing that to preserve me, like to because I'm her best chance of getting off this planet alive. So keeping me alive is the best way to do that. Like it's not like, and the thing is too, it's like they know it's a binary star system where it's like the green sun takes away is poisonous to Kryptonians. The yellow sun, restores her to be Supergirl. And it's like, so she knows that that's coming. So like, what's the big deal? And it's kind of a bigger issue here than it is, because I feel like we need to have a villain be less like cartoonishly evil, I think, to have that lesson really hit home the way it needs to. When the villain is someone who is abhorrent in the way that Krem of the Yellow Hills is in this movie, unrepentant, no redeeming qualities, and just kind of like he's hunting people for sport. He's trafficking children. And it's just like, okay, so you mean to tell me that this is the person that she's facing off against, and that's going to be the thing that that really makes her decide that she should be a good person. It's just kind of a little bit strange that's the direction it goes in. I think you need to have moments where it's like that moment where like the family that helps her, but like does it to trick her to try and get the daughter back, and then they all end up dead anyway. Like, I think you need to have that moment where it's like she's helping that person and doing that, because like there are moments of her helping people throughout this movie. Not to the degree that we get Clark doing in Superman, where it's like he's going out and he's saving a squirrel from being set on by a kaiju. Like there are still moments of her going out and helping people, saving the brides and saving all of these they're the kidnapped women. They keep calling them the brides, but like the kidnapped women is probably the proper term for what they are. But like we see those moments, and that's I just don't think that's enough, because we don't live in those moments when they happen, so they're not given a chance to breathe and let it be like you know, it's gonna resonate with her, and this is gonna be the thing that's like, "This is the right thing for me to do." Like, And I think the other thing is, like, because they use the music as a way of her physically tuning out the noise of everyone's suffering, I think that could have been something that's driven home a little bit clearer. Where, when we see her in Metropolis for the first time and she hears what's going on out there, we see her looking out over the city and there's just this cacophony of noise. And she drowns it out by putting in the earbuds with the music, and that's how she drowns out the noise. The issue with that is that it's like, that's a really interesting thing. And on the poster and in all these other places, she has the music, and the music is her way of drowning out the noise. I think two things that you should do to land it a little bit cleaner is she should have the headphones in more throughout the movie, because when she only has it in occasionally, it doesn't have the same significance. And then on top of that too, like, we need to hear when she puts the headphones in, we need her to hear all the terrible things that are happening in Metropolis. There's a great moment in, I believe it was Superman, All-Star Superman, where he has that moment where the realization that, like, he can hear everything happening. Superman can hear everything, and he just, like, listens to, you know, he's not listening to it with, like, malice or anything like that. It's just he can't be everywhere. But he's aware of everything that's happening, and that's the great tragedy of this character, is that he has the power to save everyone or save a single person every time. But he can't solve every problem because he can't be everywhere at once. And that is kind of the thing that I wish it would have touched on a little bit more. This idea of, like, she can't do that, so she blocks it out completely. And then she decides, like, no, I have to do what I can for who I can, as the affirmative end of that arc. And I think that if that was a little bit more clearly articulated, you end up a little bit stronger on that. There was one other thing I wanted to address, the Woman of Tomorrow of it all. So the movie was originally called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, because it's an adaptation of Tom King book, comic of the same name. One of the iconic things from that run is the colorfulness of it. And when we talked about earlier the idea that, this comic is that colorful, and we get these hard to read action sequences. One of the things that would have helped would have been to have the color scheme and the vibrance of that ring through here, and let it just be like, this is, it creates that contrast where you can see what's going on a little bit cleaner. Supergirl and Lobo and these, and the people of the Yellow Hills who work with Krem, who's alien race I'm forgetting, like, them being this dark, grungy thing, set it inside this universe that's vibrant and bright and visually interesting, would have been, a good way to handle it. But going back to what I was saying before, when you have the entire universe be this dirty, grungy thing, they feel like they belong, and this feels like the natural order of space outside of what's it called? Outside of, Earth. And that's kind of a problem. You need to have it feel like, oh, there's something out here that's worth protecting. And it's like the idea that, like, she's like, even like the bus that they're on, like the space bus, it's like it's broken down, decrepit, and it's just kind of, all of that said, I enjoyed the movie, but I think we should also address the elephant in the room, which is the fact that, like, because this is a female-led movie and because it's James Gunn, both of these things tend to lead themselves to be lightning rods of culture wars. And we're in a weird time with Warner Brothers, with the acquisition by Paramount on the horizon, potentially, depending on what happens with antitrust investigations and all of that. The issue that I want to bring up is, like, there's going to be inevitable talk. Is the DC universe dead? Is the DC universe done out of the gate? And are we, is it finished? And I think that one of the things I want to go back to is that it's like, I don't think that one movie that underperforms at the box office is going to kill this entire thing. Superman, or Man of Tomorrow is already in production. We have Clayface coming later this year, which we saw the trailer for before this movie. But the thing I want to point to as kind of the big, thing in all of this is when we saw the MCU in its early days. Iron Man is classic. Incredible Hulk. What's Ty Burrell's character's name? Oh yeah, the leader was in that movie. Oh wait, wasn't Emil Blonsky? Oh, who played him? Oh, was that Tim Roth? Yeah. No one remembers that movie. Then you get Iron Man 2, which is known for its studio interference and bloat, and it's not well remembered. It introduced Black Widow, but it's kind of a bloated movie. And then you get Thor. So you had like 3 movies in a row that were just kinda meh. Now, and I would say Supergirl is better than all 3 of those. Like, I'm not saying, like, let's put it in, like, the bottom of the barrel movies of the MCU and say it's around that level. I would say it's fun. There's a lot of really fun moments, and I really like the performances, and it's a solid 4. Like, I mean, maybe if you get me in a worse mood, you get me at a 3, but I really enjoyed this movie. It's enjoyable and, you're going to have fun seeing it. Um are there structural issues? Yes. Are there issues with, with some of the, the set dressing and all that? Absolutely. But no movie is perfect. And look, it's just a fun time. But on that note, we'll wrap up there for today. X-Men 97 is coming in a few weeks. We'll be talking about that as the episodes come out. If you want our spoiler-free discussion of what we thought of episodes 1 and 2 from Tribeca, you can go a little bit further down on the feed. We talked about it, and yeah, we talked about it. But yeah, what was the other thing that's coming up? Oh, we are going to catch up with My Adventures with Superman. I did not forget about that. We've just been very busy. We are going to catch up with that. Do not worry. And Lanterns in August. So we have a bunch of stuff coming down the line on here. Next week, I think we're going to use next week as a flex day. If Obsession's still in theaters, we might go see Obsession, or we might see Girls Like Girls, or another one, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not wasting my time watching a Minions movie in a theater. So we'll wrap up there for today. Until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.
Before you go, I also write fiction. My newest novel, Succession Planning, is out on August 28th, available both in paperback and an ebook. It follows a journalism grad stuck managing a store while the owners wage a quiet war over who takes over the business. It's about ambition, inertia, and taking the easiest choice. The link is in the description. That's Succession Planning, out on August 28th.